Hey guys, this video actually comes to me on behalf of one of my subscribers who wanted to get my thoughts on this particular Cameo. Now, long story short, this person had inscribed Kody to do a cameo for them because they had suffered a loss. And without thinking about what was going on with Kody at the time, you know, the loss of Big G's and the tragedy that occurred to the Brown family, they had requested this cameo. Now, as many of us are aware, Kody does all these cameos, and when he talks about, I could be making $200 an hour instead of watching my kids, so it's easier for me just to pay somebody to do it. This is what he's referring to, his cameo business. So, I mean, to be honest with you, he kind of inspired me. I'm thinking about opening a Cameo and just, you know, giving greetings to folks, maybe a word of the day, motivational sayings or whatever, because I think it's interesting. And I think if you can help somebody through a tough time, why not? Clearly, I'm not going to charge what Kody charges, but because I think that would just be wrong. But, you know, I'm thinking about doing it. In any event, Kody comes out with this particular cameo that's talking about the loss of a friend or family member to a person and how they deal with it. Now, I thought that this was interesting, and I wanted to share it with folks. It was submitted to me to ask for my opinion because after seeing it, the subscriber had, you know, good-hearted soul that they are, I think, looked at it and said, you know what? Based on what he said, I kind of give him a lot of credit as to maybe evolving or understanding where he is as far as the loss. So please don't sit there and try to, you know, give a lot of, she must be crazy. They must be crazy. He must be crazy because Kody's the same old person. They're looking at it from the perspective of what he's saying. Now, I'm going to provide my opinion and my context to what I think is actually going on. Some of the things that he says are not bad, but we'll talk about it. Let's go.
It's Kody Brown. Hey, I'm so sorry about your loss. And well, what do you say about this? A loss like this, the sadness of this experience, you can only circumvent or erase the pain of loss with the memory of the loved, the memory of those who are lost.
Now, I'm going to stop it right there. I think that that's not a bad start. Again, I don't think that this is heavily scripted on Kody's part. He's just kind of spitballing, coming up with something that he can say to somebody who has suffered a loss. So, you know, I'm going to give him that grace in just the sense that you don't really know who you're talking to. You're trying to give somebody words of comfort in a place where there's not a whole lot you can say to make somebody feel better about the loss that they suffered. The one thing I will say is that when Kody talks about thinking and about the person you've lost and the memories of that person, I want to be very specific. When you have a loss and you feel that loss, it's not just the named person that you're missing. Like, for instance, if it's a parent, if it's mom, dad, if it's brother, sister, son, daughter, cousin, you know, best friend, whatever. When you associate that person, it's not the name or the title that they have that means anything to you. It's the shared experiences that you have to hold on to. That's what you're holding on to. That's what you have to remember, how that person made you feel. One of the things that I often talk about, especially when it comes to parents who try to overdo it for holidays and birthdays, as far as presents and trying to, you know, come up with monetary gifts or whatever for their kids, because this is going to be the one that's going to win them over. In my humble opinion, when you're dealing with, especially your kids or another person, it's not what you buy them. If it is what you buy them, then that relationship is transactional, in which case they're not really considering you anyway. And you don't have a special place in your heart as much as your wallet does. But what you're actually giving that person is the experience. It's how you make them feel. So when you miss somebody and you suffer a great loss, you're not missing that person as much as you're missing the feeling that that person provided you. And when you're sad and you're sitting there thinking about it and you're remorseful and you're grieving, what you're grieving is the loss of those future experiences, the loss of that future feeling. So I just wanted to point that out. Let's hear what Kody has to say. You know, he's not off to a bad start, so we're going to give credit where credit is due.
And just remember that life comes as a contract and death is part of it. And it's just one of those things that when one passes, you learn to appreciate those that are living that much more.
I'm going to stop it right there. This is where I would say to Kody, please listen to what you're saying. He essentially said that when you experience a deep loss, you should appreciate the people who are still there more. When you lose a wife, for instance, you should appreciate the wives who are still standing by your side. You should recognize that you've done something to drive one woman away. So why continue that thing or get angry to the point where you drive additional people away, whether it's your wives or your kids? Appreciate the people that you have in your life, because at that point, once you experience that loss, you recognize that this is a possibility. Because when he talks about the idea of the contract, you know, in life, you have a contract. There's pretty much a contract. And part of the deal is, you know, one day you're going to die. That's it. You know, I've had that same saying, you know, way back. It's not my saying, but I've said it before. You know, this is one of them deals. Life is one of them deals. Nobody is getting out of this mother alive. That's it. Okay. The second you're born, the second your life starts to end. It's just, that's part of the contract. And one of the things that we oftentimes look over or forget, especially as we start to get up in age, you know, approach that middle age, that, you know, we're heading over that hump and we have more life behind us than we have ahead of us. We forget that we aren't always the first ones to go. We could be alive for many, many years after people who are younger than us or our children pass on. And so once that becomes apparent because you've experienced it, then that should be the first mover, the catalyst, which causes you to say, you know what? I need to take better care of these relationships. I need to make sure I have a strong relationship with my kids, because these kids and their lives and their presence isn't guaranteed. So that's where I take what Kody said and I agree with it. But the problem that I have, especially after listening to Janelle talk and listening to Christine talk, the problem that I have is that he hasn't applied his good advice to himself. And to that, I would say, good doctor, heal thyself. Let's continue.
And then you have the memory, the pictures, hopefully enough pictures. But you have a memory of those lost. And I don't know what to say for your solace to help you with your grief and your pain, other than that it is part of the contract and we all experience it. All of us will have the experience of grief, pain, and loss when it comes to those that we love. Sooner or later, all relationships end, either as choice or with death. So it's a very serious and sad thing that all of us, every one of us, will have to experience. And because most people, maybe if you're young, you haven't experienced it. But everybody who gets older has loss. And sometimes the young have loss. And it's just one of those things where all I can do is say that I empathize. I'm sorry for your loss. And though it hurts, we have to go on. Because sometimes we are those that through living carry the memory of those dead so that they still live on in the sense of in our hearts and minds.
I'm going to pause it right there. I allow Kody to go on for a little bit because, again, in fairness, this isn't something where I think he was sitting out drafting a whole eulogy to provide to somebody in remembrance of their loved one who was lost. I think that this is something where he's kind of spooling a little bit. He's trying to find his way. He's trying to find the words that are appropriate. That is, I think, on Kody's, to give Kody some credit here, I think that is just good business. If you're in the business of doing these cameos, you're in the business of trying to give people good word. You're trying to find the right thing to say. You want to hit the right note and not say anything that's too offensive. The one thing I will say, though, is that when we talk about memories, the memories of people, you carry those memories. And part of being the survivor, the person who outlives somebody else, is that it's on you to carry those memories. And you feel that sadness because you have the burden of that loss. And you have to carry that burden of that loss. And one of the things that I kind of see here, and I don't want to try to read the tea leaves too much, but one of the things I do see in this particular video is that I think Kody does recognize that he has lost, and he's remembering the loss that he has had. The one thing I will say, though, is that when you consider that loss, again, there is a deeper responsibility, especially as a parent. When you've experienced this type of loss, especially for one of your kids, and I understand that can be extremely heartbreaking. It could be extremely heartbreaking. But we always have to remember that there are other people who are also experiencing this deep loss, this deep regret, this deep grieving for the loss of their brother, their uncle, their son, because you aren't the only parent. And so I would encourage anyone that if you have this type of loss, sometimes the best way for you to remember that other person isn't for you to hide and shelter yourself and covet and keep those memories unto yourself because they're too fragile and too special to share. But I would encourage you to share those memories, those times, those experiences with people who knew them. That's one of the tragedies of him not having a close relationship with his family. Because these are people, Robin coming into the family, she had an opportunity to see Big G's grow up to a point. But there are other people who are there for the day to day who have had experiences with him that you may not have had. And it could give you more life and fill in some of the color of some of the pictures that you've had with regard to the person that you spent so much time with, the person that you lost. So whereas he was bouncing from house to house to house to see, spend time with his wives, Big G's had brothers and sisters who were in the house with him all the time. There are other adults who spent time with him. And part of you remembering him and honoring that memory is sharing that memory with the people who knew him the best. And so again, I don't want to be that guy who's like, "Oh, Kody, this is how you mourn. This is the way you should be doing it as a parent. You should," because I don't think that that's fair. Everybody has to mourn their own way. Everybody has to find their own way. I'm just merely saying that for me, when you experience any deep loss like this, especially somebody who's close to you, some of the more special memories that you have about that person are shared with the people who you know knew that person the best. As a for instance, personally, when my mother passed away, one of the people that I leaned on heavier than anybody else was my brother, because we grew up in the same household. We shared the same parents. We've had similar experiences. Everybody experiences every situation a little bit different. So I won't say we had the exact same experience with the exact same people, because that's not fair. Because we're two different types of people. Okay, very, very fair. Me and my brother are two very different types of people. But he's a damn good dude. And when I feel sad or I want to talk about my mom, I have access to a person who I can talk to, who remembers what it was like in that house, what it was like to be on the inside of that circle, that very close circle that we had that was called a family. So I would encourage you, it's not just you having memories and holding on to your memories, but it's sharing those memories and sharing those memories with people who are not only important to you, but people who are important to the person who you love and is no longer here. Let's keep going.
So I hope you're able to get over this grief. I hope that you will find solace in the memory of your loved one. And I hope that you are blessed to be able to love again. From me to you, I hope you much joy, peace, and love, and a great life for the rest of your life. From Kody Brown.
Okay, so that was Kody Brown. And again, this is a cameo that was sent to one of my subscribers talking about loss. And clearly, Kody knows about loss. And whether we, as viewers of the show, appreciate whether he feels it or how deeply he feels it, we'll never know. We can speculate as to whether he cared or he didn't care, whatever the case may be. But Kody knows whether he cared or not. I think that looking at this, I will say that I think that Kody is feeling it. I think he does feel that loss. I think he does appreciate what he lost in Garrison. The one thing that I will say, in complete fairness, is that in the lesson of losing that special child, he's not learning the lesson that he should have picked up from it. Take this opportunity to try to build fences, mend walls, build bridges back to your family, so that you can not only heal those relationships, but you can begin to heal yourself, especially with regards to this terrible loss. Now, I can't complain about the way he said, there's nothing I can say that's going to make you feel better, because there is nothing that you can say to somebody that's going to make them feel better. That's a complete farce. It's one of those weird things that as a person, as a human being, you see somebody in pain, one of the first things you want to do is talk to them and tell them, hey man, it's going to be all right. Hey man, it's going to be better. Hey man, everything happens for a reason, or whatever pun or cliche thing you want to say in the moment. But the reality of it is that there's nothing you're going to make that you're going to say that's going to make them forget that they lost somebody. And I think that that's the bigger part of it, is that you can't, I wish there were magic words that you could say, Victo Noratu Simbosa, and then all of a sudden you just feel better. That's not a real thing. This type of pain, this type of loss, this type of grieving is something you have to go through to get through. So the only way you're going to get to the end of it is if you have to go through it. You have to feel it. And when I see Kody and I hear him talking, one of the things that bothered me about his People magazine interview, for instance, he had talked about how he, when he was hanging out with Big G's, he misses how Big G's would try to make him laugh and how he would entertain him. And again, that was one of the things that bothered me about that particular interview, because it's not your child's place to entertain you. It's nobody. Forget child or parent, child or mother, daughter, husband, wife. People aren't there for your entertainment. Now, I will say that there is a strong possibility that I'm just taking it wrong or I'm just being nitpicky or whatever the case may be. But I think that we have to recognize that when you lose somebody, you're not just losing that person for you. That person no longer exists. They lost everything. When people pass, there's a quote from a movie called Unforgiven. It was like a Western movie with Clint Eastwood. In my opinion, it was one of his best movies because in that particular film, you know, when they used to do the spaghetti westerns, they used to have the scenes where the guy would come into town and, you know, he'd rack up a crazy body count and just everybody getting falling out of windows, jumping off of the saloon doors, all kinds of stuff. But in this first movie that I saw, not first movie, but this particular movie that I watched, it actually talked about loss, the loss of life. And the guy said, you know, I thought it was going to be easy to go in and be this big time G slinger, right? But what Clint Eastwood said is that you have to understand that when you take a man that way, you take away everything he is, you take away everything he has, and you take away everything he was and everything he ever will be. And I take it a step further. That person is going to not only, from respect of you taking them away because of your interaction, but everybody who knew them, everybody who he was important to has lost that person. So when you're talking about your child and losing your child, the bigger responsibility is understanding that there are people who also lost. You aren't the only person who lost. You aren't the only person who's grieving. And again, by you working to help those people, the weird thing is, at least in my experience, when you work to help people get through their grief and that loss, it actually helps you. That's my two. Let me know what you guys think down below. I just wanted to give this a quick run through. I promised I would do it. It seemed like the good time to release this, so I'm putting it out now. Let me know what you guys think down below, and give me an idea. Should I do some cameos, or is that too much? Let a player know. Thanks so much. Leave your comments down below. Give me your take. This is my take. I'm James, and this has been My Take on Reality, and I'm out. 'Cause I've been living life.